The human fleet moved silently through the blackness of space. Captain Ethan Ward stared out of the cockpit window, feeling the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. For decades, humans and the Thalrin Empire had been enemies. Their battles had burned planets, destroyed cities, and taken thousands of lives. Now, after months of fragile peace talks, Ethan's mission was not to fight but to speak, to negotiate, and perhaps to survive. As their ship descended into the orbit of Thalrin, Ethan felt a strange mix of awe and fear. The planet was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with strange crystal forests that glowed softly under the light of two suns. Rivers of liquid light flowed between mountains taller than any skyscraper on Earth, but beauty had never been a sign of safety. This was the home of the fiercest warriors humanity had ever faced. When the landing bay doors opened, Ethan stepped out, his boots echoing against polished alien metal. He was greeted by silence. Thousands of Thalrin soldiers stood in perfect formation, their silver-blue skin glinting, their eyes sharp and calculating. They were taller than humans, stronger than humans, and trained for war since birth. And yet, as intimidating as they were, Ethan felt something else. Curiosity, maybe even hope. The crystal palace where he was to meet the queen loomed ahead. Its towers spiraled like giant icicles, reflecting the sunlight in rainbow patterns. As he entered, Ethan was struck by the vastness of the hall. It seemed endless. Every wall and ceiling shimmered with alien symbols that pulsed faintly, almost alive. He could hear whispers in an unknown language, a melody of voices that made the hair on his neck stand on end. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform of polished crystal, stood the Queen of Thalrin. She was breathtaking. Her silver skin reflected the light. Her long hair floated like liquid metal, and her eyes were pools of glowing sapphire. Her presence filled the room. Every alien around her bowed or knelt, but she did not look down at Ethan with contempt. Instead, she studied him with an intensity that made his heart beat faster. "Human," she said, her voice deep and resonant, echoing off the crystal walls. "I have watched your people. I have seen your strength. I have seen your courage. And I have a proposal that may change the fate of both our worlds." Ethan swallowed hard. His training told him to stay calm, but his mind raced. A proposal? From a warrior race known for its ruthlessness? The queen's gaze softened slightly, and she gestured behind her. A tall figure stepped forward. Princess Lyra, the queen's daughter. She looked young, perhaps not much older than Ethan himself, but there was a quiet power in her posture. Her eyes glowed a deep, calming blue, and unlike the other aliens, she didn't glare at him with suspicion. She seemed curious. "You will marry my daughter," the queen continued, her tone both commanding and gentle, "and give me strong grandchildren." The words hit Ethan like a shockwave. The hall fell silent. Soldiers gasped. Nobles whispered. Ethan's mind spun. Marry grandchildren? He had trained for war, for diplomacy, for survival, but never for this. Ethan cleared his throat. I don't understand, Your Majesty. You want me to marry your daughter? For children?" The queen nodded. "Not just for children, human. For the future. My people are strong, but our bloodline is weakening. Disease and war have taken many of us. Your kind endures. Your kind survives. I want that strength in my line. I want hope for our people." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to process the enormity of her words. He looked at Lyra. She stood quietly, her eyes studying him like she was trying to see inside his very soul. For the first time, he felt something stir. Not fear, not duty, but curiosity, and maybe even a spark of connection. The queen's offer was audacious. Impossible. Yet in her eyes, there was sincerity. There was hope. And for a brief moment, Ethan realized that this meeting, this impossible proposal, could change the course of history. Not just for humans, and not just for Thalrin, but for both species. Forever. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan wondered if he could rise to the challenge. The hall felt heavy with silence after the queen's words. Ethan stood frozen, unsure whether to feel honored, terrified, or confused. He had faced countless life-or-death situations, negotiated peace under fire, even stared down alien warlords, but nothing had prepared him for this. Marry an alien princess, and father her children? It sounded impossible, unreal. The queen watched him carefully. "Do not mistake my request for whim or jest," she said. her voice calm but firm. "This is about survival. Our bloodline is fading. My daughter deserves strength. My people deserve hope. And you, human, you are that hope." Ethan swallowed hard. The magnitude of her words weighed heavily on him. He had always believed humans were resilient, stubborn, unyielding. But he had never imagined that this human spirit could be recognized as a treasure by an entire alien civilization. Princess Lyra remained quiet, observing him. Her eyes were full of questions, but also something Ethan could not name. Trust? Curiosity? Perhaps a spark of empathy. Unlike the Queen, Lyra did not command or demand. She simply watched, as if silently saying, "You are not my enemy." Ethan finally found his voice. "Your Majesty, I don't know if I am worthy. I'm only a captain, a soldier. How can I possibly give your people what you ask?" The Queen's gaze softened. "It is not about rank, human. It is about heart. Strength is not just in the body. It is in courage and endurance, in spirit. You have shown all of these. That is why I chose you." A ripple ran through the alien nobles present. Some murmured disapproval. Many whispered in shock. To them, a human could never touch royal blood. And yet the Queen remained unmoved, her authority unshaken. Lyra finally stepped forward. Her voice was gentle, but it carried an unusual weight. "I have seen how humans live, how you fight, how you endure. Perhaps there is wisdom in our mother's words, perhaps. There is hope in this alliance." Ethan looked at her, startled. She wasn't angry. She wasn't disgusted. Instead, there was a quiet openness, a willingness to see him as more than a stranger. It gave him courage he didn't know he had. I cannot promise what you ask," Ethan said honestly. "I can't promise children or even love. But I can promise that I will stand by your side and do everything I can to honor your people." The Queen's expression softened, almost imperceptibly, and then she nodded. "Honesty is the first step, human. That is all I ask for now." For the next days, Ethan remained in the palace, learning about Thalrin culture, their struggles and their pride. He saw a civilization that had been shaped by war and survival, yet beneath the hard exterior there was beauty, art, and emotion. There were families who laughed, friends who cried together, and stories of heroism that rivaled humanity's own. Lyra often accompanied him on these walks. She asked about Earth, oceans, mountains, forests, laughter, music. Things her people had never truly known. She listened intently when he spoke, eyes wide with wonder, sometimes smiling at the simplest human habits. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystal gardens, Lyra turned to him. "Are humans really as emotional as your stories say?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled, looking up at the moons reflected in her glowing eyes. "Yes, we feel deeply. Sometimes too much. But that is what makes us human. That is what makes us strong. We endure because we feel. We fight because we care." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps that is what my people need. Not just strength in body, but strength in heart, maybe. Maybe that is why my mother chose you." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time, he did not feel like an outsider, a soldier or a guest. For the first time, he felt a connection, not just to Lyra, but to an entire world he had once feared. The Queen's proposal was audacious. It was a challenge, but for the first time Ethan began to understand it. This wasn't just about marriage or children or politics. It was about the future of two species. It was about hope, courage, and trust. And deep inside he felt something else, a spark of something he had not expected. Maybe, just maybe, he could rise to meet this impossible destiny. Days passed in the Crystal Palace, and Ethan began to understand more about the Thalrin people. They were fierce warriors, born for combat, trained to survive in the harshest conditions. Yet beneath their rigid exterior there was depth he had never expected. They sang songs of courage and loss. They painted stories of battles won and friends lost. They laughed quietly when they thought no one was watching. Princess Lyra became his guide, translator, and companion. She had a calm presence that balanced the intensity of the palace. Unlike her mother, who commanded respect through fear and authority, Lyra commanded it through curiosity and quiet wisdom. She was fascinated by humanity, asking question after question about the oceans, forests, cities, and families on Earth. Every answer Ethan gave seemed to surprise her, as if she could hardly imagine a world so different from her own. One afternoon, They walked through the palace gardens where crystal trees reflected the sunlight in 1,000 colors. Ethan admired the glowing flora, but he noticed Lyra staring at him instead. "Do humans really laugh in the rain?" she asked, a hint of a smile on her lips. Ethan chuckled. "We do. Sometimes we dance in it too. It's silly maybe, but it feels alive." Lyra tilted her head, absorbing the idea. "Your people must feel deeply, every joy, every sorrow." "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "We do, and that is why we fight. Because we care. Because we don't want to lose what we love." Lyra looked down at the crystal path beneath their feet. Her fingers traced the patterns in the light, thoughtful. "Perhaps that is what my people need. Strength alone is not enough. We have warriors, but we do not always have hearts that endure. Maybe your kind can teach us that." For a moment, Ethan was struck by her words. Here was a princess, born of a proud and warlike race, acknowledging the power of humanity's emotions. It was humbling and strangely inspiring. Over the next week, Lyra invited Ethan to witness more of Thalrin life. They watched artisans craft weapons and statues with delicate precision. They visited healers who treated both body and spirit, and they listened to elders recount history after history of battles, treaties, and sacrifices. Through it all, Ethan began to see Lyra in a new light. She was brave, wise, and compassionate. She laughed with sincerity, thought deeply, and never judged him for being human. He realized that his mission to Thalrin had evolved. It was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about connection, understanding, and perhaps trust. One evening, under the twin moons, Lyra turned to him. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "Ethan, do you ever feel lonely despite all the people around you?" He thought about it. For years, he had been surrounded by crew members, allies, even enemies, but true understanding had been rare. "Yes," he admitted softly, "but meeting you, it feels different. Like maybe I'm not completely alone anymore." Lyra's eyes glimmered in the moonlight. "Humans feel in ways that are strange yet beautiful. I see it in you. Perhaps my mother saw it too. Perhaps that is why she chose you." Ethan's heart beat faster. He had faced battles, threats, and impossible odds, but nothing had ever made him feel this vulnerable, this alive. He realized that he was not just a guest in this alien world. He was becoming part of it, one small step at a time. For the first time, he understood that this was bigger than politics or strategy. This was about hope, about two species finding a way to coexist, and perhaps, if fate allowed, about two hearts finding something more than duty, finding trust, and maybe even love. As the night deepened, Ethan and Lyra walked side by side, their shadows merging under the glow of the twin moons. In the quiet of Thalrin, amidst crystal towers and alien stars, two worlds began to inch closer together. And in that fragile connection, Ethan felt the stirring of something he could never have imagined when he first arrived, a chance to truly make a difference. For the first time, he believed that humans and Thalrin could not only survive together, they could thrive together. Not everyone in the Thalrin palace welcomed Ethan. While the queen had chosen him for his courage and heart, many of her people, especially the high-ranking warriors, saw his presence as an insult. Among them, the most dangerous was High Warlord Karash, a towering figure with silver armor etched with battle scars and eyes that burned like molten metal. Karash had served the Empire for decades, leading campaigns that crushed planets and terrorized enemies. To him, a human, an outsider, had no place in the palace, let alone as the future partner of the princess. His pride and honor had been wounded, and he intended to correct that. One evening, as Ethan walked through the palace gardens, Karash emerged from the shadows. The twin moons cast long, eerie reflections on the crystal paths, making the warlord appear even larger and more menacing. "You think you can take what is ours, human?" Karash's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You are not a guest. You are a parasite, a stranger who dares to touch royal blood." Ethan's hands clenched, but he stood firm. "I don't want to take anything. I'm here to help, just as your queen asked. I'm not a threat if you won't make me one." Karash stepped closer, his armor clanging against the crystal floor. "Do not speak of peace. You are weak. You survive only because your enemies underestimate you. You are nothing compared to Thalrin warriors." Ethan took a deep breath, steadying his fear. "Maybe, but I survive because I fight. I endure, and sometimes I fight not just for myself but for others. That is strength too, Karash." Perhaps the kind your people have forgotten. The warlord sneered, but the tension in the garden was thick, like the calm before a storm. Karash turned and stalked away, but his eyes burned with intent. Ethan knew the confrontation wasn't over. The next day, the palace erupted in chaos. Karash had rallied a faction of discontent nobles and soldiers, launching a rebellion. Explosions shook the halls. Alarms blared. Crystal towers trembled under the force of alien weapons. Ethan ran through the corridors, his heart racing. Guards shouted orders, civilians screamed, and the air was thick with smoke and dust. Everywhere he looked, Thalrin soldiers fought against their own, torn between loyalty to the queen and the warlord's fury. In the throne room, Karash confronted the queen directly. "Step down!" he roared, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Abandon this madness. No human will ever sit in our halls. No human will touch my princess." The queen's sapphire eyes blazed with authority. "You are blind, Karash, blind to hope, blind to the future. You have forgotten that strength is not only in war. It is in courage, in endurance, in the willingness to protect what is right." Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between Karash and the queen. His armor was scorched, his face streaked with blood and grime, but his stance was unyielding. "Then you'll have to go through me," he said, voice steady though his chest heaved. Karash laughed, a cold, terrifying sound. "You? Alone? Foolish human. You will die here." As the warlord raised his blade, ready to strike, a flash of blue light cut through the air. Lyra had fired an energy spear, her aim precise. Karash's attack was stopped, and he staggered backward, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping for breath, blood dripping down his face. Lyra rushed to his side. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear. I'll live," he managed to say, looking up at her. "You saved me." "No," Lyra whispered, brushing her hand against his cheek. "We saved each other." The rebellion was not fully over, but in that moment, amidst fire, smoke, and the shattered palace, a bond had formed. Ethan and Lyra had faced danger together, and survived. And in doing so, they showed the Thalrin people something they had never seen before, that courage and loyalty could transcend race, blood, and history. Even as alarms continued to echo, Ethan realized something profound. This wasn't just a fight for the palace or for a queen. It was a fight for the future, for unity, and for hope. The palace was in chaos. Smoke curled through the grand halls. Crystal shards littered the floor, and the scent of scorched metal and ozone filled the air. Ethan's chest ached, and every step sent sharp pains through his body, but he refused to stop.
He could not.
Not when the queen and Lyra were in danger. Karash's rebellion had grown bolder. Soldiers loyal to the warlord pushed forward, their weapons cutting through corridors like lightning. Ethan ducked under a swinging energy blade, rolling to his feet and firing back with his own weapon. Each shot took precision and courage, and each movement was a gamble. He knew that if he fell, the palace and the queen might fall with him. Lyra fought beside him, her movements swift and precise. Despite her royal upbringing, she wielded her energy spear with the skill of a warrior trained for survival. Together they moved through the palace side by side, their trust in one another growing with every pulse of danger. Then, in the throne room, Karash appeared, his massive frame blocking the exits. His armor gleamed, scarred by countless battles, and his eyes burned with fury. "You think you can stand against me, human?" he snarled. "You are nothing but a weak, fragile creature. And yet you dare interfere." Ethan took a step forward, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice was firm. "I am not weak," he said. "I fight because I have to. I fight because I care, and I will not let you destroy what is right," Karash roared and charged. The ground trembled under his weight. Ethan dodged, rolling under the warlord's swinging blade, but the force of the strike sent him crashing against the throne. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he forced himself to rise. Lyra's spear whistled through the air, aiming for Karash, but he deflected it with ease. The battle seemed endless. Ethan knew that physical strength alone might not be enough. He needed courage, strategy, and trust in the bond he shared with Lyra. Karash swung again, aiming directly for Ethan. At that moment, Ethan's instincts and resolve merged. He caught the warlord's blade with a metal gauntlet, using all his strength to hold it steady. Karash snarled, shocked by the human's determination. "Do you see?" Ethan shouted, gritting his teeth. "Strength is not only in power, It is in heart and courage in fighting for something bigger than yourself. With a sudden, precise move, Lyra lunged forward, her spear piercing Karash's armor and striking him down. The warlord gasped, his expression frozen in disbelief, and then collapsed to the floor. Silence filled the throne room, broken only by the labored breathing of the survivors. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted, bloodied and bruised. Lyra rushed to his side, her hands trembling as she checked him over. "Ethan, are you okay?" He smiled weakly, pain flashing across his face. I'll live. Thanks to you." Lyra shook her head, tears welling in her glowing eyes. "No, we saved each other." The rebellion was quelled. Soldiers loyal to Karash surrendered, and the palace slowly returned to order. The queen, standing tall but weary, approached Ethan and Lyra. Her eyes shimmered with a mixture of relief and pride. "You have done more than survive," she said softly. "You have shown my people that courage, honor, and loyalty are not limited to bloodline. You have proven that the heart can bridge worlds." Ethan looked at her, still catching his breath. "I did what I had to do. For your people and for yours," he said quietly. Lyra took his hand, her touch warm and steady. "And for us," she whispered. For the first time since arriving on Thalrin, Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose beyond survival or duty. He realized that he was not just a visitor in this alien world. He was a part of its story now. A story of hope, unity, and courage. As the twin moons cast their gentle light over the palace, Ethan and Lyra stood together, battered but unbroken. They had faced impossible odds and survived. They had defended not only a queen and a kingdom, but the very possibility of a future where two species could trust, fight, and live together. And in that quiet moment, amidst the ruins of rebellion and the glow of the alien moons, Ethan understood something profound. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought with strength alone, but with heart, courage, and faith in those beside you. The palace was quiet now. The chaos of the rebellion had ended, and the crystal halls reflected the soft light of Thalrin's twin moons. Ethan sat on a polished bench, his armor dented and scorched, his body aching from the battles he had survived. But for the first time he felt calm, safe. Beside him, Lyra's hand rested gently on his. Her fingers were warm, and the touch carried reassurance he had never known before. The queen entered the hall, her presence as commanding as ever, but now softened with relief and pride. She surveyed the scene, the surviving soldiers, the repaired corridors, and most importantly, the human who had risked everything for her people. Her sapphire eyes met Ethan's, and he felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. "You have proven yourself, human," the queen said, her voice echoing through the quiet halls. "Not only in battle, but in heart. You have shown courage, loyalty, and strength beyond what I could have hoped for. You have earned my daughter's hand and my respect." Ethan's chest tightened. Words seemed small against the weight of her acknowledgement. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said softly. "I only did what was right. For you, for Lyra, and for your people." Lyra stepped forward, her glowing blue eyes reflecting both emotion and joy. She looked at Ethan with a sincerity that pierced through every doubt he had carried. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "you stood by me, by my mother, by our people. You fought when others would have fled. You risked everything, and yet you did it without seeking reward. That is the heart I want beside me." Ethan swallowed, his voice caught in his throat. "Lyra, she smiled softly, finishing the thought for him. "Then we will stand together, not as human and alien, but as equals, partners, and eventually, family." The queen raised her hands, calling the gathered nobles to attention. "Witness this union," she proclaimed, "for it is not only a marriage of two souls, but a bond between two worlds. May this act of courage, trust, and love mark the beginning of a new age for Thalrin and humanity alike." The hall erupted in applause. Some of the soldiers and nobles still looked hesitant, but many bowed, acknowledging the bravery of the human who had risked everything. Ethan felt Lyra squeeze his hand, and he realized the enormity of what was happening. This was not just a ceremony. It was a statement of unity, hope, and peace. As the vows were spoken, Ethan's mind drifted to earth. He thought of the people who had sent him here, unaware of how fragile peace had been. He thought of the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, and the endless nights of uncertainty. And now he was here, choosing to dedicate his life not just to survival, but to love, trust, and the future of two species. Lyra placed her hand over his heart, Do you promise, Ethan, to stand beside me through joy and sorrow, through peace and war, to build a future for our people together?" Ethan met her gaze, the weight of their shared experiences giving him courage. "I promise," he said, his voice strong despite the exhaustion. "I promise to fight for you, protect you, and build our future together. Not as human and alien, but as one." The Queen smiled, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Then it is done. May your bond bring strength, hope, and love to our people." The celebration lasted long into the night. Music filled the crystal halls. Laughter echoed through the corridors, and for the first time Ethan saw the Thalrin people smile freely. Humans and aliens mingled, sharing stories, food, and experiences. The barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were beginning to crumble. Ethan stood with Lyra on a balcony overlooking the city, the twin moons reflecting their intertwined shadows. "We survived," he said quietly, almost to himself. Lyra smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Yes, and now we will thrive. Together." In that moment, Ethan realized that the battles they had fought, the rebellion, the war, the prejudices, were only the beginning. True strength was not in power or blood, but in trust, courage, and love. And in that quiet, glowing palace under the alien moons, a new story of hope and unity had begun. Years passed on Thalrin, and the galaxy changed quietly around them. Ethan and Lyra's bond had grown stronger with each passing day. Together they rebuilt not only the palace but also trust between humans and Thalrin. Where there had once been suspicion, now there was curiosity. Where there had once been fear, now there was hope. The Queen often watched from her high chambers, her eyes soft with pride. "Your courage has given my people something I feared we had lost forever," she said one evening as Ethan and Lyra stood before her. "You have given us not only unity, but the possibility of strength through love and heart. You have given me grandchildren strong enough to carry our legacy." Ethan looked down at their children playing in the crystal gardens. They were a miracle, a perfect combination of human resilience and Thalrin's strength. Their laughter rang through the palace, light and pure, bridging worlds without words. Even the guards and nobles who had once doubted him now smiled when the children ran past, their joy impossible to resist. Lyra rested her hand on Ethan's shoulder, her gaze filled with warmth. "Look at them, Ethan," she whispered. "They are the future, strong, curious, and kind. They will grow knowing both our worlds, and one day, they will lead our people with wisdom we could only dream of." Ethan's heart swelled with emotion. He had come to Thalrin as a soldier, a human ambassador with duty on his shoulders. He had faced battles, fear, and the impossible, but none of it compared to this feeling. Watching life he helped create thrive, watching hope take root where war had once dominated. The children ran up to him, their small hands clutching his armor. "Father, tell us a story of Earth," one of them demanded, eyes shining with curiosity. Another tugged on Lyra's hand, asking about the stars and moons. Ethan laughed, scooping them up, feeling the warmth of life, the power of connection, and the promise of tomorrow. The Queen watched silently, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You have fulfilled my greatest wish," she said softly. "Strength in body, heart, and spirit. Humanity has given us more than I could have imagined. You have brought us hope when we thought it impossible." Ethan knelt beside her, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty, I only did what was right. We all did. The future belongs to these children. They carry both our worlds in their hearts, and they will teach us to be better." Lyra joined him, resting her head against his shoulder. "We fought together, survived together, and now we will build together. That is the true legacy." As the twin moons rose high, casting their gentle glow across the palace, Ethan felt the weight of the years melt away. He remembered the battles, the fear, the rebellion, and the Queen's audacious proposal. Every challenge had led him to this moment, to this life filled with love, courage, and family. He looked at Lyra, at their children, at the people who had once doubted him, and he realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not in weapons, ships, or power. It was in resilience, in heart, and in the willingness to care for others. That strength had changed Thalrin. That strength had shaped the future. For the first time, Ethan felt truly at home, not just on Thalrin, but in the universe, in the bond of family, in the unity of two species who had learned to trust, to fight together, and to love. The children laughed and ran through the gardens, their joy echoing across the crystal towers. Soldiers, nobles, and citizens watched, smiling, knowing that the impossible had become reality. A human and an alien princess had defied fear, prejudice, and war, and in doing so, had forged a future brighter than any could have imagined. And as the moons cast their silver light on the palace, Ethan and Lyra stood together, holding hands, hearts full, watching their children play. They had survived, they had fought, and they had triumphed, not through conquest, but through courage, heart, and love. In that quiet, shining moment, it was clear to all, humanity had not just survived the galaxy, it had changed it forever.